Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. So happy to have everybody here today. I want to welcome our guests and my panelists, and I want to welcome everybody joining us here today. We've got a big audience, over 1,200 people registered, so it must be a hot topic. And I'm thrilled to be here hosting. My name is Whitney Cathcart, and I am co-founder and chief strategy officer at 3D Look. Super excited to be here today talking about a topic near and dear to my heart and to our panelists here. We're going to talk about all things virtual today, all things fit and sizing, and how we're all working together to help create better experiences around fit and sizing for our customers. So we welcome again. It is our third webinar of our 3D Look Closer Look series. And just super excited to be here today. We're going to be introducing YourFit, which is the first experience that combines the functionality of a fit and sizing experience with the engagement of a try-on experience. It's something that our team and our engineers have been working on for a long time. It's super complex technology, and we're very, very excited to have one of our brand partners here today who's going to be our first test pilot in the launch in just a couple of weeks. So super excited to be here. A couple of things around housekeeping that I promised my marketing team I would not forget. So number one, we're going to be doing 2 interactive polls. These have worked really well with us over the last couple of webinars. It's a way to get you as the guests involved in what we're talking about today. So I really encourage everybody to please participate there. It's all dynamic, so we do it live. There'll be one in the beginning, one in the end, and Ed, you're going to be helping me out with that, since as the presenter, I actually can't see them, but please go ahead and participate in those. They're lots of fun. Number 2, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We love questions. We've got some of our customers in the audience. Thank you for being our amazing customers. We've got a lot of new faces in the audience. We love questions, so please go ahead and use that Q&A button. The chat is disabled, so please ask your questions with the Q&A. I promise to get to as many as I can in the Q&A session at the end. And for those questions that we don't get to today, we do always go and make sure that we answer them. So please send us your questions. And finally, we are recording the video or the webinar, and we will be sending that off and sharing it with all of you. So with that, I'm going to move on and let's start our conversation today. We've got definitely people in the audience who know who we are, but for those of you who don't, again, my name is Whitney Cathcart. I'm one of the co-founders at 3D Look. The company was founded back in 2016. We are an AI-first technology company. I'm going to spend some time talking about the tech on the backside of this webinar, so I'm not going to get too much into it right now. But our goal is really around creating better and more engaging experiences for consumers when they're shopping online. We've got over 100 customers. Thank you for those in the audience for being with us. You make us who we are. They range from small and medium size all the way up to some global enterprise customers. We've won some awards along the way. I'm really happy to announce that we were just recently acknowledged in the mixed reality category of the latest Gartner's Hype Cycle for Retail Technologies. So that's really exciting for us. So enough about me. I want to move on to my esteemed panelists today. I'm super excited to have Ed. Many of you know Ed. Ed, I feel like you're kind of famous because when I get on calls with you, everybody seems to know you. But for those of you who don't, Ed is widely recognized as one of the world's leading experts in the apparel, fashion, retail, and workwear industries. Ed has been a longtime advisor to 3D Look and recently joined us full-time. I feel very, very lucky to be going on this journey with Ed leading our fit and sizing team. When he's not spending a lot of time on the phone or webinars with me, he also runs Gribbon Strategic, which is a retail advisory firm, and also serves on numerous boards and regularly presents insights and thought leadership themes to international apparel conferences. Ed, thank you for taking time out of your busy day with 3D Look to be with us. Also excited to welcome Amanda Costco. Amanda is a future-focused entrepreneur with a decade of experience in journalism and marketing. She's most known for Electric Runway, which is her ongoing online project with a mission to document how technology is transforming the enormous $2.4 trillion fashion industry. She appears regularly on TV and radio programs. She's an expert commentator on technology, fashion, retail, and all things innovation. She also has an amazing Instagram, so please go follow her there. Amanda, thank you for joining us today. And Tanya. Tanya is VP of Innovation and Strategy at 1822 Denim. Tanya is also one of 3D Look's earliest customers. I think we are coming up on our second year birthday with you. You are an innovative and creative executive. I can say that with a lot of experience with you. Tanya has spearheaded brand partnerships and activations with some of the biggest entertainment companies on the planet, like Disney, Universal, Nickelodeon, and Warner Brothers, just to name a few. I know firsthand she has also worked with some of the biggest retailers on the planet. She's been instrumental in designing, manufacturing, and selling lots of private label brands. She's got an innate background and experience in fit and sizing. She also spent a lot of time in denim. So it's really fun to see what you're doing with 1822 Denim, switching over from the manufacturing side to the e-commerce side. Your statistics year over year at 1822 Denim on e-commerce are just mind-blowing. So I'm really happy and thankful to have you, both as a customer and also somebody who's just really smart and really innovative. So thank you all three for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So with that, Ed, because I can't see it, I'm going to hand over the first poll to you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Whitney. And it's not popping up on my screen.
Is the poll?
There we go. Okay, we'd love your participation, everyone here. So what types of fit technology are you currently using on your websites? Are you using quiz-based technologies or AI-based fit predictors? Are you using a mobile body scanning type solution? Are you doing any virtual try-on? Or are you not using any of these? Please vote and we will ring up the results in a few seconds here.
It's always the hard part, waiting for the results. I hope everybody's engaging with them.
You know, size predicting technologies have been around for not a long time, but about 25 years now. And I'll talk a little bit about some of them later, but they were very, very rudimentary in the late 90s, early 2000s, when e-commerce was just beginning to. Now they're quite sophisticated, and it'll be interesting to see what the responses are here.
We calculating those responses?
Okay, 15% using quiz-based or AI-based fit predictors, 10% using a mobile body scanning solution, hopefully ours, 12% using virtual try-on, but 64% none of the above. Very, very interesting response. So Irene, if we could close that out, I'm going to turn it back over to Whitney.
Great, thanks. And thank you, audience, for participating. Always really interesting to see what people are using. So let's talk about fashion, right? Fashion is back. I love Lauren Thomas, up 47% in June. We are out and buying again. I have been up in New York recently. It's amazing to see people out again in restaurants. We're seeing our friends, our family, our colleagues in person. A lot of this has been accelerated, of course, by COVID. We saw online sales pop up before COVID. Wow, COVID has been a major seller in here. You've seen U.S. growth in here by 2012 expected to hit $1 billion. Recent poll showed more than 8% of millennials and almost as high that number on Gen Zs are buying fashion online. So Amanda, I'm going to kick this one over to you first. I'd love to talk to you about some of the opportunities that you've seen in the growth of online shopping. What are some of the opportunities that COVID has kind of presented and that you continue to see kind of in your futuristic viewpoint?
Yeah, certainly. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much, and Whitney, for having me. Thanks to 3D Look for hosting this conversation. It's definitely been a hot conversation with some of the startups that I'm advising and some of the just people that I'm talking to on a day-to-day basis. So I think what COVID has really done is, and we have data to back this up, is it's accelerated digitization and the adoption of digital technology. And if contactless commerce or e-commerce was once a nice to have, it is now a must have. So people are not comfortable shopping in store, and even though they are out shopping, they might be doing it on e-commerce, or they might be browsing in person and then later making the purchase online. So I think that the opportunity to sell anywhere at any time is truly here. You know, we've been talking about omni-channel for years and years and years, but it's not just your typical channels, your website, you know, it's also your Instagram, it's pop-up shops, it's live streaming. There's just been a plethora of experimentation in terms of retail and experience and how to augment and extend the in-person experience to the online, right? So we're seeing websites that are looking more like e-commerce stores, and we're seeing e-commerce stores that look more like websites, a true merge of the digital and the physical. And for consumers, I think the shift that we've seen is shopping is something that you do. It's not somewhere you go. It used to be, when I was growing up, that the shopping mall was the sort of meeting place among, you know, my friends in high school. And now it's different. It's definitely something that you do online, and it's frustrating still as a consumer. There's a lot of friction if there's not accurate size recommendation, if there's not great customer service. There's a lot still, I think, to be done on e-commerce websites to satisfy the consumer, but I have seen a lot of interesting innovations, especially out of younger and emerging brands. So those include video meetings and, you know, even leveraging the QR code, the good old QR code is sort of making a comeback. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to revisit some technologies that we perhaps dismissed earlier, and then really explore into, as I said earlier, augmenting that retail experience.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit, but the idea of the QR code pre-COVID in the US was a very different experience. I, you know, give a shout out to restaurants there, but we use a QR code, as Tanya can speak to, when we move consumers through a web-based experience onto their mobile devices. And pre-COVID in the US, we had a much harder time with consumers really not understanding that. Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of really around experiential commerce, and how are you bringing the idea of the, you know, literally how we used to fit and be able to do it, you know, inside or wherever you are. I like to call it kind of bringing the dressing room into any room, right? So some of the things that we've looked at in terms of obstacles that consumers face when they're purchasing online, and this was a survey that was done, 94% rate sizing is the #1 key barrier to purchasing online, right? That's not really a big surprise to any of us, even the most seasoned experts like Ed, or actually everybody on this panel, we're still faced with the choice of, wearing multiple different sizes and multiple different brands. And so for 3D Look, and I know for you, Tanya, it's really been around, how do we help consumers believe that the number on their screen is something that's actually going to fit them, and we drive down that behavior of, I'm going to buy 2 or 3 of something. We also know that 4 out of 10 consumers refuse to make a purchase without trying it online. So, Amanda, I think kind of going back to experiential commerce and some of the things that are happening globally in terms of try on, and we'll get into that a little bit more deeply, really speak to that, right? How are you taking that kind of in-store experience and moving it online to meet this, acceleration of consumer shopping online? And then 62% of consumers who use AR said it encouraged them to make a purchase. Amanda, I'm going to have you talk for just a sec. I know you've done a lot of work around, AR beauty. What do you think in terms of try on? How does that kind of move over into try on? What are your predictions there?
Yeah, well, augmented reality has been a fantastic tool for try before you buy technology in the beauty industry, as we've seen. And the reason it's been so successful is because companies like ModiFace, who I have experience and history with, have been really successful at mapping the face. The body, as we know, is different and it's more difficult to map. And that's why we haven't seen the same acceleration or adoption in apparel as we have with the beauty industry. But when I look at trends online, especially digital fashion and NFTs and this sort of craze around crypto clothing, folks want to wear their crypto clothing, so digital fashion that doesn't exist in real life, but is just a design. They want to wear it on their Instagram and on Snapchat. And so augmented reality is playing a bigger role in virtual try-on for fashion. Whether or not it's completely accurate yet, I think still remains to be seen. But there's a huge business case for it, and it's really fun and engaging for consumers. So I think that both of those are pointing us in the direction, and it's only a matter of time before the technology catches up, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, Ed, you've had decades in fit. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. Ed, talk to us a little bit. Where's fit been? Where is it today? Where's it going? Talk to us a little bit here about what you've seen in fit and kind of some of the work and predictions that you've got.
So the whole idea of does it fit me was answered by going into a fitting room 25, 30 years ago and beyond. And with the advent of e-commerce in the late 90s, brands became very concerned about returns. They were so focused on the cost, they had to figure out a way to reduce those returns, because consumers early on figured out they could buy 2 different sizes, 3 different sizes, try them on at home, and return them. And the return process was never user-friendly to the consumer 20 years ago. So it started with size and fit recommendations. How do I get a consumer to understand? So first thing, I put up a size chart. It was amazing to me, and we learned this in the years at IntelliFit and then at Alvanon, that what a brand puts on their website and what they're actually building product to are often 2 different things. Mm-hmm. And it's the digital team puts something up on the website, and the technical team actually develops the specifications and the grade rules, and they don't talk to each other. So size and fit recommendations have been a really difficult challenge. They started out with size charts, and then they moved on to little boxes where you plug in your body measurements, self-reported, and it will spit out a size. And there were about a dozen companies in the aughts between 2000 and 2010 who had that type of technology on their website, and they're all out of business today. Move on to body data analytics. At IntelliFit, we started body scanning consumers, and I built a consulting practice there which I then moved to Albanon in 2006 and became the largest body data analytics firm in the world, working with retailers and brands and using data, not necessarily to tell you what size you are, but to make the best fitting size 2, size 4, size 6 to fit the target demographic of that brand. And that works very well, but it still doesn't answer the problem of when I'm shopping online, what size am I in this brand or in this style? So moving on, we've seen a lot of efforts into virtual fit. You know, will this look good on me? Does it fit me? And in this last decade, there's been a whole development along using artificial intelligence and machine learning to either ask a quiz or body scan an individual, and in one or other or a combination of those methodologies, be able to predict size. The challenge there is that everyone has their own personal idea of what fits them well. And personal preference, I used to say this back in the day, that you can't legislate what looks good on a person.
Right.
If you walk down the street, you see someone who just looks horrendous. Something is way too tight, way too loose, way too long, way too short. And you just think about it and you think, oh my God, I can't believe they walked out of the house. Well, they walked out of the house looking in the mirror and saying, I look great. So you can't legislate that. So there's a real challenge around that. And then personalization. We're seeing a lot of that now in the market. You know, how do I personalize a recommendation for an individual? How much information do I need from that individual in order to give them a really, really solid recommendation that's going to not only fit them, but look good on them?
Yeah. And Tanya, I know you're going to talk a little bit about, you know, kind of the work you've done, but I'm going to probe you a little bit here on body data analytics. So, you know, we've spent a lot of time, you know, from the very beginning talking about what do our customers really look like, right? I think we've all grown up in an industry where, you know, we have been the driver, we're the designers, we create the fit, we standardize the grading that's relevant to our own brand. But what have you learned from body data, and how's that impacted anything that you're doing over at 1822 Denim?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Thanks again for having me, everybody, at 3D Look. It's really great to be here. It's really simple. I mean, I think everyone is different. Everyone has a different size, a different shape. Everybody's represented differently. Like Ed said, you know, there's a very personal preference as to the way, you know, garments fit. And so what we've learned here is, how do we tackle that? You know, how do we really build a brand and build a place where customers can come and feel represented and find product that fits her or him or whoever it may be, right? So, you know, we really set out to find technology companies that could help us fit that solution and find that solution for our mission to, you know, reach our goal to fit everybody, which is a big task, as we all know, but it's possible. It definitely is possible, especially using 3D.
Yeah, well, and I think what's interesting about you too, and not all brands do this, is you actually use multiple different fit forms and multiple, you know, different.
For sure. Unlike other brands, we do, because we have, you know, a large target demographic. We fit most women of all sizes, whether she be contemporary fit, petite, plus, curvy, maternity, and so forth and so on. And so, unlike other brands, we do use at least 3 to 4 different fit models to represent our customer demographic.
Yeah, that speaks to fit intent. I can see Ed nodding his head right there.
Mm-hmm.
We spend a lot of time talking about that. We also spend a lot of time talking about the concept around, does it fit me and does it look good on me?
Right.
Ed, I'd love for you to weigh in here. How important is answering these two questions to the brand, and how important is it answering these two questions to the consumer? So I'm gonna give you one of them, Ed, and I'm gonna give Amanda the other one, because I think the answers are so interesting.
So if I walk into a store and I see something I like, normally the first thing that attracts a consumer to any type of fashion is color. So the color appeals to me. I look at the style. If the style appeals to me, I get closer to it. I pick it up, feel the fabric. I hold it up, and I don't hold up the first one. I look through the pile for what I think is my size, and I hold that up. So I don't look at a small. I'll pick up a medium and hold it up and take a look at it. And if it looks like it might fit me and I like the fabric and the construction, I may try it on. That's kind of a trick question for guys, because most guys won't try it on. They'll just take it home. But say I try it on in fitting room and it doesn't fit me, or it doesn't flatter me, or I don't like how it fits under the arm. I may make the judgment at that point that that brand doesn't fit me and walk out of that store. So it's really important from a brand perspective that I am inclusive enough that I can communicate my fit and sizing parameters really well, so that I can embrace as many consumers as possible who are attracted to the aesthetic of my brand. And from the consumer side, it's the holy grail. I mean, if it doesn't fit, I'm not going to, if I get something at home as a guy, you know, there's a really terrible amount of product that's bought through e-commerce by men who don't return it. So the
Right.
brand thinks it's stuck. It must have fit. And maybe it didn't. It's sitting in someone's closet, or it's been given the goodwill. So I think it's really important from the consumer that if it doesn't fit or it doesn't look good on me, I'm just not going to wear it. And that's bad for me as a consumer. It's bad for the brand from an image and reputation standpoint. So really critical questions.
Yeah. And Amanda, it feeds into the conversation we had too around sustainability. Talk about that a little. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely echo what Ed said. And I would also add that this is a conversation I have with my father quite a bit. My father was the president of Made to Measure at Harry Rosen, which is, I believe, the largest men's retailer in Canada. And he would talk about, just because something fits doesn't mean it necessarily looks good, right? We have different body shapes and certain things are flattering on different body types. So there's that. But I would also add, do I feel comfortable in it? So does it fit me? Does it look good on me? And do I feel comfortable in it? Because I think after a year of sitting in our sweatpants, we're going to be hard pressed to get back to a super buttoned up look where you have zippers digging into your sides and things like that. Because we're just not going to go back to that. And I'm seeing a lot of the fashions coming forward for next season, and they're all very loose and very fluid, which I'm looking forward to. But from a sustainability standpoint, to your point, you know, if we're not wearing these items, if we purchase them and they sit in our closet, or we purchase them and then we end up putting them in landfill straight away because we don't wear them, then we're just adding up to that global impact. And we know that the fashion industry is responsible for between 5 and 8% of carbon emissions. This is not new information to everybody. So it can be the carbon emissions from producing an item that doesn't actually get worn, or the carbon emissions from transporting 2 or 3 sizes that the customer can try it on in the comfort of their own home and then return it. I mean, it's just not good business to be getting your customer into the wrong size for so many reasons. So I do see technology as a solution here to be able to sort of bridge that gap. But even with those fit quizzes that you were mentioning, Ed, I took one of them last week when I was ordering a pair of shorts. It told me I was a 4, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm a 6. So even myself, with sustainability in mind, had to order 2 sizes. Sure enough, the 4, which the website recommended me, didn't fit because I have more volume than just, you know, in my waist, and I had to return the item. So from a customer experience, it was really frustrating too, because all I want is a pair of shorts. I'm a busy person, and now I'm going back and forth between the retailer, even though I've ordered on e-commerce to have to avoid going to the store. So it's still a frustrating user experience, but I think that as we've covered, fit is subjective. it is size, but it's also about flattering and comfort and personal style, I think. Like, does it fit my personal style and how I want to be in the world as a dressed person?
Right, right. And preference, as we know, plays a lot into it. This is a experience we did with VF Dickies in China. And, talking about bringing value to a brand, there was Bain had done a study, and we just saw some really amazing statistics coming out of that. 94% higher conversion rates on products with the widget. This kind of leans into, how we're thinking about fit, how actual body measurements play into brand fit intent, which is something Ed just touched on a little bit, and I know we'll get into a little bit later. Really trusting that widget so that you're only buying one size, and that leads in 211% more unique visitors on products with the widget, 87% reporting 3D Look improves the shopping experience and helps them to choose products. So it's a lot of it is around understanding bodies, understanding preference, understanding brand fit intent, and producing a size that gives the consumer that experience of actually believing that they don't need to buy 2 or 3 of something only to return it. And Tanya, I'm going to talk a little bit over with you, if I can get to the next slide. I mean, you're kind of like proof in the pudding, right? You really leaned into this early on. You really were an innovator, particularly in mobile body scanning, right? Quizzes, as Ed, they've been around a long time, but that behavior of how do you get a consumer to actually take 2 photos of themselves? Talk a little bit about what were some of the signals that drove you to be an early adopter and innovator in the e-commerce space?
Yeah, thanks. So really we've been talking about it this whole time during the panel, but it's no secret that there's been a fit and sizing problem across the fashion industry for years, right? There's been inconsistent sizing across brands. That all caused confusion, and even worse, brands have been alienating their customers because they don't feel represented. They're not really sure what their size is. It's just a hassle to shop and find the right product for them. So here at 1822 Denim, we really set out to change that narrative. We wanted to build a brand where, all customers feel included and represented when it comes to their body shape and size. And knowing that the whole world was moving to 3D, we, focused in on the 3D as a solution, and we knew that we needed a tech partner in order to help us achieve this goal, right? And so we didn't believe in the quizzes because that's leaving it in the hands of the customer. Even though she thinks she knows her size or her measurements, we all view ourselves a little bit differently than we actually are. Most consumers don't really know how to measure themselves. Don't know, when the chart, they don't really know where's really their waist or where are their hips. So the whole process is just extremely confusing. So when we met with 3D Look, right away, we knew that they were the right partner because the solution that they were offering, which was, capturing 2 photos of your customer, side and front, and within seconds, you'd be able to find out what your size was, and we would be able to recommend the perfect product for the customer. So we've been 2 years now together, and like you said, the proof is in the pudding. The technology has impacted our business across the board. From this chart, you can see we've experienced 40% decrease in returns. We're tracking well under industry average, anywhere from 7 to probably 10%, which is huge. We've seen 23% increase in AOV and a 4 times conversion rate. So it has been amazing for us, our partnership. And the other part of it has really helped us with designing products. So capturing all of that body data really helps us understand who's our customer and what is it that she wants from us. So we're able to design in a more focused manner, and we can right size our inventory levels. And best of all, for me, it's really guided all of our marketing efforts.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
To our consumers. So yeah, it's been amazing across the board.
pushing us on try on for years. So I'm
For years, even before COVID.
excited to be able to give it to you. It goes without
Yeah.
saying that, world's leading brands are adopting try on technology, right? We just saw the recent acquisition of Zkit by Walmart. Amanda, you and I talked the other fear and avoidance in the fashion industry, why brands have not adopted some of these technologies faster. I'm going to quote you because you said something the other day. If you're not on this, you are nowhere. Tell our audience what you meant by that.
I just think that 3D is the next frontier, and 3D can expand into your augmented reality experience. It can expand into a try-on experience, and it's kind of like the new JPEG. So when we first got e-commerce websites, everyone had to have beautiful images all of a sudden, and the amount of images that a company has to produce on an even daily or weekly basis has skyrocketed with social media and the kind of rapid sharing that we do all the time. But 3D is the next JPEG in the sense that all of your assets are going to be captured in 3D so that a customer can then drop them into their living room and view them in 360 and perhaps even try them on in augmented reality or through some sort of virtual try-on feature. And that's what I meant to say, that if you're ignoring this, then you don't really see what's happening. And it makes sense because our experience of clothing is 3D, it's not flat.
Right.
Yeah.
So we should be able to, in the metaverse or in e-commerce, experience that 360 experience. Sorry to say it so much, but that 360 experience of clothing.
Yeah. And we're definitely seeing it coming out of social commerce, right? There's, it goes without saying that there's social commerce definitely driving a ton of sales in the fashion industry. Social media companies acquiring younger customers at a, in crazy accelerated rate. I think it caught a lot of people off by surprise. Snap's been on a recent acquisition spree. They've acquired AR startups. They recently acquired, industry giant in fit prediction, fit analytics. And last week, to your point, Amanda, they acquired Vertebrae, which is a company that lets create and manage 3D versions of their goods. So all of this is happening. It's happening much faster. And it's definitely where younger consumers are. They're digital right from the beginning. I think it's really all around making shopping easier, right? And so, this is something we all talk about. How do you kind of take the complexity out of fit and sizing? How do you bring that kind of in-store experience online? What does that future look like when you're bringing in advanced technologies and you're creating, experiences that just, weren't even out there a couple of years ago? So I think, we all are very excited here about what the future is bringing. We're super excited to launch YourFit with 1822 as our first customer there. That'll be live in just a couple of weeks. And again, it's really merging that experience of this fit and size recommendation that's based on a body, based on brand fit intent, with that engagement of what does that look like on me, right? So what the engagement of the try on experience. So I'm going to actually stop talking for a minute and we can see exactly how it works. kudos to lots of people who made that happen, from marketing, but also our 3D and engineering teams. It's been a work in progress over many, many years. It essentially is combining completely different technologies, all using our core. So I want to spend a couple of minutes, for those of you who don't actually really know what we do and how we do it. I want to take a minute to talk about the technology behind YourFit. And so I'm going to start with the core technology and then let Ed talk a little bit about the try-on piece of it. So really at the highest level, what the core technology does is to simulate the process of getting a high quality, high-end scan, which is an accurate representation of the consumer. But instead of getting it from a high-end scanner, we're getting it through a simple capture process, which is just a very easy flow, which is a front and a side photo taken by the consumer wearing clothing. And so there are basically 3 steps around processing this, right? The first one is photos are taken on a smartphone camera. We support iOS, we support Android, we support older phones. And it's a very simple flow with just a front and a side photo. And then down here in step 2, computer vision algorithms are then detecting the human body under the clothes. And we do get a better result from tight fitted clothing. We have a neural net and a feedback loop, which confirms that, what consumers are wearing. So we are basically detecting the human body under the clothes. And then we've got neural nets, which we have called landmark detectors. And those landmark detectors then mark those photos for the construction of the 3D avatar. And then over here in step 3, and this is really the secret sauce. And this again is simulating a real high-end 3D scan that comes out of those 2 photos. And we go from 2D to 3D. And then after we have that avatar, over here, that avatar is really the secret sauce for everything that we do. So, we currently generate over 80 different points of measure from that avatar. And that avatar really is the foundation for our fit and size recommendation engine. And then also very importantly for our try-on. So Ed, you've been in 2D and 3D and fit and sizing and people and measurements for decades. So let's talk a little bit about how we're doing this.
So I think Amanda pointed this out earlier, and Tanya is all in on this, that giving person the size recommendation is one thing, but consumers want to know how it's going to look on them. And this is something that we're really excited about. We basically take the front photo of the 2 photos that a person took, and we segment the parts of the body. We replace the human body with a 3D model, and then we take 2D assets from the brand and create a 2D virtual try-on results. So what's really crucial here is that we're creating the view of the human body through the 3D avatar, which is why it's photorealistic. But we're not requiring that the clothes themselves be 3D, which makes it easier for most brands today who don't have 3D assets. There's going to be a time very shortly when all brands are going to have 3D assets, but we're not there yet, unfortunately. At the end, the clothing is superimposed back on the 2D version of the 3D model that we created. But what the user sees is that 2D representation at the end. So again, it still looks photorealistic. The try-on technology uses neural nets, as you mentioned, that separates the pieces of the photo out into parts so that we can use them later in the flow. So for example, there's a neural net that we use to accurately estimate skin tone, which we need to create the accurate 3D avatar, and then we superimpose the proper skin tone onto that avatar. So there's a lot of technology going on behind the scenes here, but the end result is that I can take a 2D asset from a brand and mix and match outfits, try it on, and determine how it's going to look on me and not on some generic avatar.
Yeah, thanks. We have so many questions coming in. I'm really excited to get to some of the questions. While we're on this, I'm going to bounce this one to Amanda because it's around crypto clothing, which is, something that we certainly internally discuss. And I want to talk about our focus on try on and kind of where we're taking that. But regarding crypto clothing, do you anticipate these consumers want their digital garments to reflect reality, or will they like the alter image they're able to embrace?
I think it's both. I think it's that we want to use augmented reality and 3D to try on for practical reasons to see if things will fit. But I do see a lot of more on the gaming and self-expression side of things that people want to dress themselves how they would never dress in real life. And I think that's part of the exciting fantasy of fashion. And that's something that 3D and augmented reality can definitely provide. But you could take elements of something crazy that you created on the internet and then certainly make that in real life. Or maybe you want to dress crazy in real life. Who am I to stop you, right? So I think that there's this kind of symbiotic relationship between what's going on in gaming and in crypto, and then what's going on in apparel and retail.
Yeah, absolutely. Try on is something, we're 3D look that we have always imagined is going to be part of our future. We've got a lot of features as part of this product that we're working on over the next couple of quarters. I'm not going to give everything away today, but we're working on things like the ability for consumers to actually create their own profile where they will be able to store their scan, store their virtual try-on, and create a virtual closet that would be able to follow them around. So again, it's like, how are you taking the experience of going into different stores and buying things and you build a closet at home, but how are you doing this in a virtual way? So I've just so many questions coming in here. I want to first get to the last pop-up question, and then we're going to move into Q&A, and we'll spend the next probably, 10 minutes or however much time we've got left with our amazing group of panelists here getting through some of these questions. So Ed, back to you on the pop-up.
So if all of our attendees could please participate, this would be great. The question is, what experiences are you most excited about implementing into your customers' digital shopping journey? Is it virtual try-on? Is it size and fit recommendations? Do you hope to do customized products like on-demand manufacturing? So you don't have the inventory except maybe in fabric. Create a virtual closet, or provide your customer with personalized product recommendations. So please vote, and we'll process the answers and give you the results in a second.
And maybe while folks are voting, I can ask a technical question, Whitney, and maybe you can answer this for me. But when you're getting the customer to take the photos of themselves for the scan, how do you account for variances of where they would place the camera? Because I know that if I place the camera lower to the ground, my legs are going to look longer, versus if it's up here, then my forehead's going to look bigger and my chin's going to look smaller. Do you actually instruct them in your walkthrough video to place it at like waist height or a specific spot so that you have an accurate reading?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we've done so much work around user experience, and a lot of this is an education, right? We all are used to like answering many questions in various different types of quizzes and different brands, some longer, some shorter. But so that education piece of we want you to wear something we need you to wear tight fitting clothing. We need the angle of the phone to be a certain way. So we've built that into the user experience. So we actually want to allow you to actually, if your phone is angled too much, the photo won't be taken, right? So we've got a little, it's like a green button. And then in our hands-free experience, which we launched over COVID last year because there were a lot of people home alone and they didn't have somebody to take that front and side photo. We actually walk that through a voice controlled mode that actually walks the consumer through it. You're basically putting your phone on a desk. So you're not putting it on the floor, and we take you through that and you angle it. And again, there's a lot that we built into the UX to really help the consumer do this in a way that's engaging. And you know what, Amanda, for us, it's a constant experiment in consumer experience, right? And how is the consumer going to be most engaged? We've done so much testing with you, Tanya. We've also just launched a new experience on Men's Warehouse and also on Joseph A. Banks. So for any of you men out to buy a suit or a sport coat, there's a brand new experience there as well. We've done things along the way, like dropping confetti to make it feel like a delightful experience, right? So part of it is getting the user into the experience, and then part of them is delighting them on the back half of it. So I can't see the poll. Is it up?
It's up, and you'll be happy to know that the winner is virtual try-on. 60% of the participants would like to implement virtual try-on. 52% size and fit recommendations. 33% customized products. We did that on-demand webinar a couple of months ago, and it was interesting, very well attended, a lot of great questions, but it points out that we're still a little bit early on the curve when it comes to on-demand. 18% virtual closet, and 27% are looking to implement personalized product recommendations. So the big winner, virtual try-on.
Well, that's great. That's certainly great and validates the direction we, and most importantly, the consumer is going. So I'm going to ask a question about that one. So this is a long one. I love your try-on feature. The 2D looks realistic. Can you talk a little bit about some of the complexities around creating 3D try-on experiences? We talked a little bit already about some of that. I'm really based on the fact that many brands don't have any 3D yet. That is coming, and for brands that aren't on it, it should be part of your roadmap. Ed, you and I yesterday talked a little bit about this, but some of it too is, getting people educated in 3D. And so that, tech designers today really need to have 3D experience. So, I think that's something in general that the industry has been grappling with, certainly in the education system and some of the big fashion design schools that we've been working with. It's slowly becoming part of the curriculum. Ed, what are your thoughts there on 3D? There's lots that goes into it: compute power, processing.
So there's been talk about moving product development and design and fit to 3D for a decade. The PI conferences have been oversold in multiple countries with people looking to learn more about 3D. And as great as those guys are and those conferences are, we just didn't see any penetration in the mainstream industry until the best thing that happened to 3D was COVID. With COVID, people had to work remotely, and the number of people and brands that have really fast forwarded their initiatives into 3D in the past 12 months has been amazing. So I think we're moving much faster down that path than we were 2 years ago. And there's a huge incentive for people to do that. But the idea of doing a real-time 3D try-on at this point, we're still partly limited by technology and bandwidth in terms of processing time. We want to think first about that consumer experience. I want to be able to, as in our video, see the product immediately. I don't want to wait 3 minutes for it to process in 3D. And with Moore's Law and quantum computing and the advent of new chips, it's going to be a very short amount of time before we'll be able to process that body in 3D, process the digital asset in 3D, and mix and match clothing items from a brand's arsenal or library of assets. We'll be able to do that in real time very quickly. But user experience, I think, is a really good reason why we're starting in 2D. And then I wouldn't be surprised if a year, 18 months from now, we're launching a 3D solution, because I think the computing power will be there to do that.
Right. And this leads into, this is a great question. What assets must be provided by the brand for 3D look to work? There's two. One would be on the fit and sizing, and then one would be on the try-on side. On the try-on side, what we need are ghost mannequins. And we have a pipeline for that. And Tanya, that's what we are using to provide you with the first try-on experience. It also, that question actually comes in quite a bit, which that leads into, Ed, what's the data that we take in order to do fit and size recommendations for different brands?
So, I know this from my past lives that every brand has a core fit standard, and that standard is based on a body. It used to be based on a fit model, a live model. And at Al-Anon, we used to preach what Tanya is doing. Use multiple live models because that's going to be realistic in terms of how your customer sees themselves. But at the end of the day, you need one truth, one starting point, and that's the mannequin that you're fitting on or the avatar you're developing in 3D. So the core body measurements of that body tell us how the brand is intending to build their product. And then there are grade rules. How are they grading up and down in a size scale? And it's not just grade rules on bust, waist, and hip. It's do they grade length? What about their secondary points of measure like cross shoulder, bicep, thigh? So we get the grade rules and the core body measurements, and then we can estimate what a brand's intent is over an entire size range. And that's the starting point for the algorithms that we use to take the 3D body model that we've created with those two photos, pick which measurements we want, prioritize those measurements, and create a logic that we use to determine the best fitting size for that person in the style they selected.
Great. Thanks, Ed. I want to be mindful because I have a question I want to ask all you guys at the end. Let's see, there's a quick one. Would this work for bespoke or made to measure suits? I take over 20 measurements for client orders. I'm going to answer that quickly. Yes, we've got probably 30 or 40 MTM companies on our platform. We compute over, I think we're up to 87 different points of measure of the human body. So we've got all sorts of different measurements for waist, above the waist, waist girth, abdomen, so on and so forth, inseam to the floor, inseam to the ankle, so on and so forth. Do customers always get a size recommendation? Oh, this is a great question. Or are there some customers for certain styles that cannot be fit? If so, what happens in this case? That's a great question because there are many brands and retailers who do not ever want to say you don't fit in any size. However, we do have customers who don't want customers in bad fit. And there are plenty of us that just don't fit in a brand fit. So we have that ability to turn that on and off. So that's a quick one. I want to thank everybody for questions because there's like so many here, but one that I want to get to with our panelists, and Amanda, I'm going to start with you on here. If there is one what is the one technology that you think will be the most relevant to engage consumers over the next some odd years, 3 to 5 year horizon?
I would say it's AI. Artificial intelligence is powering all of these 3D try-on experiences. It's behind augmented reality, and it's also behind a lot of the personalization engines that we're seeing in the future. So websites that know more about me as a shopper and can serve me up suggestions that are actually relevant to my body type and my preferences. So I would say that on the surface, it might look like it's these other technologies. AI is behind everything that we're doing in the future of apparel.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Great answer.
Yeah, I echo what Amanda says for sure. I think there's going to be steps in order for us to get there and for the customer to adapt. I don't think it's going to go quickly to AI, although we know that's where it is in the future. I think taking steps like virtual try-on is the next step, but ultimately it'll be definitely going into the AI realm for sure.
Ed, how about you?
I can't argue with that. I talk to brands and retailers all the time, and AI investments that are being made with major brands, it's just phenomenal. And it's not only on the consumer facing side, it's on the back end where they're designing and developing products that they know consumers will want. They're using artificial intelligence to merchandise a line. It's taking a little bit of the art out of that merchant prince concept, Mickey Drexler days, and it's letting the computer kind of tell me this is what my customer really wants.
Well, and the customer's telling us that, also driven by AI, by the way,
Right.
because everything we do is driven by it. And as we get into, on demand, which we touched on briefly, but, how automation and supply chain and how it's all coming together. 3D Look is one piece of that very, very, very complex puzzle. So we've run out of time. I just want to say thank you so much to our guests here, my panelists. You guys are amazing, and I just could talk to you for many, many hours. I want to also thank all the guests that joined us today. Thank you for all these questions. They're still like coming into my phone. It's amazing. We will definitely get to them. Our marketing team is awesome at that. I hope everybody has a great rest of their Wednesday. Thank you for spending this hour with us. And we look forward to seeing you at our next A Closer Look series in a couple of months. So Tanya, Ed, Amanda, thank you for your time today, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.